Hi, welcome today to Celebrity Customer Experience, Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from employee experience to customer experience. Because when you create that connection culture within your business, you're going to create genuine relationships, accountability, and you can count on your employees to always be delivering that celebrity customer experience for your paying customers. Thank you so much for investing your time. I'm super excited about today's guest coming from across the world. So I'll skip some of the original intro, but I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, your time to maximize this time together. Take notes, share it with others, because today we're going to be speaking about putting the human experience on the Nordic agenda. So not just customer, employee, really understanding the combination. So with that, I want to bring on Joanna Carr and Merete Medle with us from Norway. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. I really love that this passion and recognition of the importance of the customer experience, the employee experience, really is a global concern, a global passion. And so thank you so much for coming. And I know it's late where you are, so thank you for spending the time with us here. So just quick summary, a bio of who they each are, and I'll let them expound upon that a little bit on their own, for the sake of kind of getting in as much of the good golden nuggets that each of them brings with them. Joanna leads customer experience consulting at Allegro, a Norwegian technology and communication agency. She's provided strategic guidance to companies and developing their comprehensive CX programs, a judge for various customer experience awards on the advisory board for leading CX programs at a business school in Stockholm. Merete Medle is passionate CX practitioner, leader, founder of Norwegian CX Network, board member, podcast host. Both of them host the CXPod, which I just had the pleasure of recording and super excited to see that come out. Just so many great nuggets. She's a writer, DEI ambassador, spinning instructor, very cool, DJ, and mom to twins. I love it. So one thing that we all share is really this passion of leading differently, leading from the heart and putting people first, which I love. And so welcome, ladies. If there's anything you want to share or add to that, please go ahead and do so now.
I mean, wow, thank you for such a great welcome is what I have to add. And it's such a pleasure being here. The kind introduction and yeah, the spinning sometimes takes people off, or at least surprises them a little bit. But I love spinning. I love music and I love people. So I think that's the reason why I'm here today. And together with my beautiful co-host Joanna from the podcast, the CXPod from Norway, for the Nordics.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, and thank you, Merete. As Merete is saying, we have the pleasure of hosting a podcast together, which we have a lot of fun. We get to learn from a lot of change agents and thought leaders across the globe. So that is wonderful. And we were thrilled that you would join us, Jill. So awesome to switch around and now be part of your show. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we're not used to that, are we? We're sort of used to running the show, and now we are the guests. So that's pretty exciting as well.
Okay, I love that. Well, you need to do more of that. So let's dive in then. One thing that I love to hear, and I'm sure our listeners do as well, is what brings you to this space? Like, what drives that interest, that passion that you've created a podcast all around customer experience? What is it that in your backstory, in your journey in life, that brought you into this world of CX? Merete, you want to start?
Should I go first? I was trying to be polite and give Joanna the.
I knew each of you were going to do that. So.
Yeah. So I think I come from a really, really small place in Norway, and it's, growing up with 500 neighbors, and that was about it, and an island far out in the ocean. So you get to understand that people need to be treated in certain ways, and making your way about such a small society and community. And then I just love people, and I love seeing how people interact, and seeing how people, in small communities, how we took care of each other, how if something happened to someone, the rest of the community would sort of be there and help and provide, whatever necessary for everyone to be, safe and happy and all of that. And I think that's from the childhood perspective, that's where it started, I suppose. I love people and connections, right? But then by coincidence, I suppose I ended up in the restaurant and hotel industry when I was about 18, 19, and just working in that industry with people who are experiencing, everything from traveling to staying abroad to just paying for a meal instead of cooking it themselves. There's something vulnerable about that as humans, when we put ourselves in situations or places where we're not used to being. And the need and the sort of blessing of being somebody to provide them with that safety and feeling of being taken care of, I think that's just where it started. And wherever I've gone after being in that industry, I've just taken that perspective with me. So, I've been in telecom, I've been in home alarms, I've been in technology companies, insight analysis. But it's always been about that, having integrity towards other people and being, a decent person, really.
I love that you use the word integrity. That in your show, we talked about empathy, right? I think they come from the same place. And you're crossing industries, that common thread. I mean, it's beautiful. I love it. And thank you. And your unique experience, which I think I would say it's probably safe to say probably all of those who will be hearing this, have never experienced, like, living, as you said, like out with 500 neighbors, surrounded by water in this gorgeous country. But it certainly brings a very different perspective, different experience. And yet here we are, very much aligned, but your source comes from such a beautiful place. Thank you. I love that. And Joanna, what about you?
Yeah, thank you. So I share a lot of the same, what should I say, values as Merete, which is, I think, why we've sort of ended up working very closely together. But my background comes from England. So even though I've lived in Norway for the last 21 years, I grew up in England and started my career actually working quite in luxury retail. So I worked in big stores such as Selfridges and Harrods, worked on cosmetics, managed the cosmetics departments or sections. And my journey to Norway taught me that it's, as a foreigner in another country, when you can't just speak the language, that customer experience is, that's when it can come really to light, so to say. It can be quite difficult. So I was actually quite discouraged of being a new, what should I say, landsman, countryman at the start. It's totally different now. But so I think my passion was that I saw that there was an opportunity to improve customer experience. And I did continue within the cosmetics world for a while, and I worked for a company that's called Rituals. I'm not sure if you have Rituals in the US. They were growing into the US, I don't know. They're a cosmetic company that have done hugely successful across Europe. And it was actually at my time with Rituals that my passion for customer experience really took off. And this was because they had a very unique way of approaching both employee and customer experience. The manager, the CEO himself, the actual founder of the company, he would himself, say that, the reason for their success is not one thing, it's in all of the details. And he really went out to practice what he preached. So there was a huge investment in people, in education, in the employee journey from start to finish, from the first moment that you would start at the company to celebrating pivotal moments, to even the day that you'd leave. So it was during my time there that I thought there's so many other companies that could learn from this. So that's when I started my career as a consultant, so to say, and have been doing that now for the last 4 years, and not working with cosmetic companies. Now I work with every kind of industry, everything from B2B to utility to telecom to everything. So
I love that. And thank you. Again, the diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences. And it sounds like what your experience at Rituals really laid the groundwork and highlighted from beginning to end of the importance of doing all of those pieces. I was going to ask why it kind of crosses over, but like why you think the CX is so important in a business environment. And it looks like we lost Merete. I sure hope she can join back in. I just shot her a quick email to see if she can use that same link and pop back in. So I'm guessing she had some technical difficulties, and hopefully we'll see her pop back in a second. But in the meantime, we'll continue. So, is there anything else that you would add to that in terms of, there she is. Awesome. Nice to have you back. I was just saying, can we hear you speak? Can you hear us, Merete?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. No, there you are. Great. Fantastic. I was just asking, it seems like you both touched a little bit on why people need to even consider the customer experience. Why do you think it's so important in the business environment? And you both touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else specific that you would add for leadership, for business owners, for management, from that perspective of why is it so important? Like, what's all the fuss about?
So I don't know exactly what Joanna said, and I'm sorry to just have left. Something must be wrong with my computer. So
it's okay.
But I do think it's because it's simply good for business. And it's not just from a commercial perspective that I say that. And I think it's really important that we understand in which order we focus on these things. So if you start with the empathy, your business is going to grow from it. If you start with the approach of wanting your business to grow and trying to use empathy as a sort of a trick, it's not going to work for you. So you need to have the correct values. But it's as easy as this. If you focus on your people, whether it's the customer, the employee, your partners, your vendors, they're going to be wanting to see you succeed. And they're going to come back in return and want to spend their money with you or spend their efforts and even try to help you improve. So it's that easy, really, but it's obviously hard to understand. And I think we struggle with this even after so many years having customer experience management on the agenda. But for me, that's it. It's good for business.
Simple, right? Like I love that you brought up the empathy again and the idea of, you always hear people say, follow the money. But in fact, in business, because we're in a people business, it doesn't matter what you're selling. At the end of the day, if you're only doing it, as you said, for the money, then people feel that. People feel that there's an ingenuous motive behind what you're doing, and people can feel that authenticity, or whether it's fake or put on. Joanna, anything to add?
Yeah, I would totally agree. It's good for business, and it's as simple as Merete was saying as well. We are basically people serving people. We're humans serving humans, and without having a focus or a direction for how that experience should actually be within our company, we will end up with a company that is, or people that are running around making, what should I say, sort of without any direction, making decisions and changes towards the customer experience without a clear sort of direction of what that experience should actually be. And I think, this is the reality, that our working environment, the way we serve customers, has never been more complicated than it is today. We have, it's not just people serving people anymore. It is digital, it's apps, it's artificial intelligence, chatbots. There's so many elements of serving our customers well, that if we don't actually put customer experience on the agenda as a strategic direction, then we will struggle to be able to keep like a brand identity within our company. So I think it's absolutely crucial. And honestly, I can't understand why, if there's companies that still haven't got like a customer experience strategy as a pillar over all of their marketing, sales, digital directions, then it's a recipe for disaster, really.
Oh my gosh, I cannot agree with you more. Thank you for bringing up those extra points. I agree. It should be that umbrella, right? The human experience should be the umbrella of all of that. And it's true. It's not just about the people experience. We have to think of all the other technical and technology, how the influences on the human experience with that. I believe that people are people first and we're customers second. And it does go both ways. We experience on a daily basis what it's like to be a customer on the other end of the purchasing experience, and we deliver, all right, as business people, as professionals. So so important to really consider all of those details and to think of, regardless of what's happening, that needs to be, I think, kind of that North Star, that light that shined on that. So thank you for really reminding us of the importance of all of that. So
if I may have a comment,
please.
Like you said earlier, my brain is just catching fire now because there's all these things, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. So I just sort of state out that we keep thinking, with everything that's happening and how much more complicated a customer journey has become with technology, digitalization, all of that. But if we wind back a couple of 100 years, or even not that much, we need to go back to basics. And this is so interesting. I talked to a friend about this a while back, and we were talking about how we need to renew our way of thinking, from a sustainability perspective, from a human perspective. But it's not really about renewal. It's about getting back to basics. And what was customer experience about? I mean, even the oldest disciplines that we have in the world, from crafting to being, selling fruit or vegetables at the market, it was about ensuring that you provided value with what you had to provide, right? And that's really it. It's that simple, but we've complicated it so much because of, capitalism and commercializing everything and, brand building, which can be so much fun. But then again, it's sort of ruined it as well, I think. So we need to get basics, I think. And that's where the human centricity comes in.
Thank you for mentioning that. It is so. There's a country western song I just recently heard, and it's something about bringing back more of what used to be. Like shiny bullet, right? You're right. Tech and all those things. It's kind of like that squirrel, right? What's next? What's shining? What's going to attract me? What's fun? But at the end of the day, to your point, think about, where do we shop? Where do we like to go? We, like in our neighborhoods, we go where people know us, where they know what we like, what we want. We can call them by name. They know us by name. Those are the basics, I think, that you're referring to, or at least a nod to.
We should embrace all the technology as well, but we must not forget what it initially is all about. so that you can have that extra time then to remember people's names, or, you know, greet them with the way. That's what I would love to see more of, actually, in today's customer world.
I echo that sentiment 100%. And I think everyone would, because everyone wants to hear their name wherever they go. They want to know that they're seen as a person, not just someone there to purchase something or to someone to make a commission on, or whatever it is.
But I think that is a really important point, but sometimes that's not necessarily what the customer wants either, because sometimes the customer wants to just get their job done, and they want to get it done in the way they want to get it done, easily and efficiently. And I think that this is also the clue for companies, is actually understanding who are your customers, what are their needs, what are their jobs to be done, and how do they want to get their jobs to be done. And then, for example, if you have different platforms, like some people will want to use the digital way, some people would definitely want to ring, other people will still want to email. And the clue is really ensuring that no matter which way the customer goes, that journey is delivering the value and solving the job to be done in an equally as good a manner as each other platform. And that's why I'm a firm believer of having a clear direction, again, as we talked about, the sort of umbrella that helps guide. It doesn't have to give strict rules, but it needs to guide the actions that are being taken within our companies.
Excellent point. The voice of the customer, right? So it's a perfect segue into that. We have to treat, again, these are broad strokes, because it really depends upon the type of business, the size of business, what it is that you're selling, right? And of course, you have to consider those variables within there. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the common thread is delivering to your customer what they want, how they want to receive it, in the time that they want, which is, for example, the introduction of the kiosks. When I first I remember I was in Leicester Square in London the first time I saw kiosks in McDonald's. And my listeners know my connection to McDonald's and the personal connection and the personal engagement that I always loved. And I was like, I was horrified. I was like, oh my God, this is destruction. Where's the human connection? And then we have to stop and think, okay, that customer wants to get their food quickly. It is used to be called fast food. They call quick service, QSR, quick service restaurant. And that's really important for customer satisfaction, is delivering what that customer wants. So on that note, where do you see the value and how it's used, the VOC, the voice of the customer? What is your thought? What are your thoughts on that?
I just want to immediately share, and this is something I read on LinkedIn today, actually, John Sill from the UK, talking about how speed has an impact on it, right? So would you prefer getting to work 15 minutes early, sweaty and stressed because you've been in someone's armpit for the whole train ride, or would you prefer getting in an hour or 15 minutes later, but you've had your seat, you had internet connection all the way? It's one day you'd want the one, and the other day you would want the second, and that's why the both of them are together. So when it comes to voice of the customer programs and insights and analysis, I think understanding this comes from having listened to the customer. So some customers need to get their McDonald's, in and out, and that's it. Sometimes you want to sit down and I don't know, interact with the McDonald's account. Is he even around still? I don't know, but it's depending on the day, and you can be the same customer 2 different days, 2 different needs. So I think Joanna will support me in this as well. We've talked a lot about voice of the customer programs, and we do need them. I think getting the quantitative insights is important to be able to quantify and even do the ROI analysis. But I am a firm believer of qualitative insights. We need to talk to our customers more. We need to have them collaborate, because In a survey where you check a box, you're going to say one thing and then you're going to go out and do another, because that's what emotions does to us. So we need to sit down and talk to them and try to be in their shoes and even walk the journey with them. And that's what I love about today's Voice of the Customer programs, that they allow you to start using the qualitative insights in such a bigger degree now than before.
100%. Joanna?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important, as you were saying as well, Merete, actually combining quantitative with qualitative insights, because they do give us different things. I work a lot with small, medium businesses, where often these expensive voice of the customer platforms are actually not a viable option, but they still need to have insights from their customers. So some of the best ways for them to do that is exactly as you were saying, Merete, is actually conducting, and I don't even like to call them interviews anymore, but qualitative conversations. It's more about having a conversation with the customer to find out, and not only about what they're happy with, unhappy with in regards to the customer experience, but more understanding, and this is back to John Sills, who Merete just mentioned, but more understanding their real life, their real hopes, their real ambitions, their real jobs to be done that they need to get done. And especially within the small medium market, where it is difficult. It's everybody out for themselves, so to say. You need to remain unique, and you need to remain as useful to your customers as you possibly can. And that means that you've got to stay as close to your customers as you possibly can and talk to them to understand, how's their world changing? Can we help them in their changing world? Do we need to create different products, services, experiences? But I think Voice of the Customer program needs to come back to being a little bit more human-centric.
Yeah, I would agree. And of course, I would expand that to me, the customer, whether it's internal customer, the employee experience, the employee voice, the voice of the employee is all the more important today than ever. And they're engaging with their frontline end customers. So they're a wealth of information, both from what's going to make them the best employee for you to deliver your company's culture to your end customer in the way that you want, from a positive, happy perspective, showing a collective, cohesive team where then your customers are going to get those experiences. So it really is like weaving, right? It's a combination of the voice of the customer, the voice of the employees, and it's iterative. It's constant. Customers are changing, needs are changing, technology's influencing it. So it's really needing to understand what's going on. And I think often bringing in outside voices, outside perspectives, to be able to look at all of this information, this data, what's happening. Because sometimes when you're in the inside, you're kind of blinded by the way things always are and the way things have always been. So for the sake of time, we're going to go a little bit over today with two guests, but I want to jump into two things before we close out. And one is, with your podcast, CXPod, you've spoken to so many interesting people over the last couple of years. And what would you say is your one that the topic, the nugget, whatever it is that stuck with you? What is do you think, one of your favorite shares or ideas, thoughts, tips that you would like to impart upon us today?
You go first, Joanna.
I've got a feeling I'm going to take the one that you're probably thinking of. But actually, I think it's a recent podcast we had with a lady called Stina.
Ringvik Martal.
Ringvik Martal. And Stina actually talked about, she took us through an airport journey at Copenhagen Airport. So actually designing the customer journey. But this wasn't just designing the customer journey it was designing a customer journey for people with invisible disabilities. Thank
Disabilities,
you.
yes.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
invisible disabilities. And I think this was such a huge, what should I say, awakening for myself, because I think as well, she said, you know, if you design experiences for people with invisible disabilities, you are going to improve the customer experience for everybody. And why is that? And I think this comes back to what we've talked a lot about today, empathy. Because when you start to uncover how is the experience for people with invisible disabilities, so people that we can't necessarily see, that can't hear us, or they've got impaired eyesight, for example, you know, we really have to start challenging ourselves to walk in our customer shoes in a whole new manner. And I think, you know, if everybody actually did that exercise, that would give them a gift for actually working continually with improving customer experiences. So I think that was one of we've had some great guests, but that is one that's really stuck out clearly in my mind from our recent podcasts.
But it's interesting. I just came back from London and noted that in the airport there was a sign that talked about invisible disabilities, and I can't remember what area, if it had to do with the wheelchair. No, because that wasn't visible. But there was something, and I was with my mom and we were talking about how it was interesting. I pointed the sign out to her and was like, yeah, because if people don't see that there's a disability for someone, they might get angry or bitter that why are they taking away, or why are they going first? And they, you know, it just because you see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So even bringing that awareness to the forefront of our minds is something I think really refreshing and very interesting. And so thank you for mentioning that. That's a really good one.
Just want to elaborate a little bit, because what Stina also did with the airport at Copenhagen, they handed out these little signs. I think it's a flower, so you could tell the environments that you actually have a invisible disability. And one of the examples she made, going back to, you know, it's good for business to be inclusive and also have a human-centric mindset, is that by making it easier for non-hearing people, because of the trauma of trying to order a coffee at an airport when you cannot hear what the waiter is telling you, but making the waiters aware that some people do not hear you and helping them how to attain these people, and then having these people wear this little flower so that it could be seen. They and this is going to sound horribly and commercial, but they managed to increase coffee sales because, you know, so that's the commercial value at business. But also the people who were now not having to worry about getting their coffee at the airport. They knew that they would be able to be met by somebody who knew how to handle them as customers. So it's just a brilliant little piece of one example that they made in there. And can you imagine what we could do if we did that to all the, I'm you know, don't get me wrong, I don't want to refer to anyone as weakest links, but my English isn't that good, so bear with me. But, you know, if we could stop always designing for the 99, but sometimes just design for the one, because the 99 will benefit from that. Yeah. So and you know, including diversity, inclusion, and all of that into the human-centric way of designing services and products. Again, it's good for business and it's good for humanity as well. So that was to elaborate on Joanna's point, and just to mention, like, I think it's short. What we've seen is everyone has been talking about technology coming at us, AI, but what everyone, at least, you know, in our sphere, and we talk with CX and EX experts, they're not worried that technology is going to take the human. We all see that, you know, we're going to have to collaborate, we're going to have to get used to using it, but we will still be human, and we still have to be human, because the value of being human in a technology world is still way too big. So, you know, we're worried in a sense, anticipative, but still we believe that, you know, there is a place for humanity still, and that makes me very, very optimistic for the future.
Yes, me too. And it's important to lead with optimism. And just a note to your comment about, you know, taking it back to sales. I don't think there's anything wrong with that after all, right? That the beautiful thing here is that in order to have this experienced by many, we have to marry it into the business world.
Mhm.
And when a company is successful and profitable, they're going to grow and expand and touch more people. And that is ultimately the goal. So I think,
Yeah, and remember the difference. They did it to be inclusive. Then came the
right.
so it's
Yeah.
all about the approach that we have to it, and it's just a lovely example that Stina provided us with. You'll find the episode. It's even in English, so if you want to listen to it, it's right there.
Right. Yeah, and I will. I can put it up now, but then we'll also. There's the link to the podcast, a short link. I'll leave that up for a bit, and then we'll continue the conversation so people can find your podcast. There's a shortened link for that, and it's called CXPod. So it's also super easy just to do a quick search on any of the podcast platforms. And I love the way you tied it back to leading with purpose, right? Not leading about just in order to make a profit, but really leading with purpose. So on the final note, so much more to be said, but I'm just curious then, kind of parlaying off of your favorite podcast note, but what would you say personally from your experiences would be the key takeaway that you could give someone if they said, okay, from all this great information, what can I apply pretty immediately? Like what type of important action, a takeaway that people could implement right away to improve their productivity, their efficiency in their business, how to apply CX strategies? What would that be for each of you? And whoever's ready, just I'll let you go for it. Maybe the other one wants to think a little more. I don't want to put you on the spot.
You want to go, Merete?
Yeah, sure. I was maybe from a CX perspective point of view, that's hard. So, what am I like to say, what should I do when I go to work on Monday, right? Like if I want to change something, what should I do when I get to work on Monday? So I think it's, and again, I'm going to steal a little bit from John Sills, who keeps saying, if in doubt, be human. So when you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a decision, just bring the customer into it and think, how is this going to affect either my employees or my customers? And if you start using that as a needle to sort of orient yourself of, for which direction to choose, I think that's what you should do, because as a leader, you would be leading by example. And as an employee, you would be showing some initiative that may take you places that you hadn't expected, because magic happens when you are human centric. So, if going to be easy, that's probably the easiest I can break it down to. But then obviously, get going with fetching your customers and your employees insights to understand them, so that you could, at least figure out if what you're providing them with is something that they want and need. Because so that's my two little nuggets.
I love that. It reminds me of, I have a t-shirt that says, and you can see this quote on mugs and everywhere, but like, you can be anything, be kind, right? Like you can be anyone you want to be. You can be anything you want to be kind. So I love that approach of just always going back to the human element. Thank you for sharing that. Joanna?
Yeah, I think mine's quite along the same lines. I really love the term of building social capital. I think very often that I find myself often trying to get buy-in, so to say, for customer experience. It's not a term that I'm actually a fan of, getting buy-in, because I don't think it's more about how can I serve. So if I'm a CX manager and I want my top management to buy in customer experience, it's more about my mindset as a customer experience manager or a marketing manager or a sales manager or a contact center manager who wants to get funding or initiatives or backing for customer experience. But the clue starts with thinking, okay, how can I serve my company and my management team so that so that they can also get that we can create value for everybody, because the end game is that we want to create value for the business and for for our employees and for the customers. So I think building social capital is all about being the person that is actually the initiative taker, starting the conversations, actually walking up those stairs or to the office and talking, for example, with the management team and sitting down and saying, I really want to work more with customer experience. I think this is really important. But it needs to start with finding out what's important for you. What are you thinking about when you're trying to go to sleep at night? What operational challenges do we have? And then actually being proactive and going out there and doing some homework to find out, okay, where are we having problems that are linking to that I could actually serve my management team better? Where are the problems? So it's all about building social capital, understanding, asking the questions, being proactive, being the doer, so to say. Because if you really do mean it, if you really do mean that I want to put employee customer experience first, this is something I'm really passionate about, then you will be a doer. You'll not expect to get, what should I say, rewards for it. But you will do it because you want to serve the humans around you well. So I think that's sort of my top tip. And that's what I'd like to see people start doing, having conversations, asking, what do we need? What can we do? Yeah.
Right. I love how you it's about, like, it's not about what I want to provide you guys with. It's about what you guys want me to provide you with,
Yeah.
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 Asking the right questions, right? Instead of imposing what we think, speaking their language, ask what is that you need, and then provide it accordingly. And that's getting that voice from them. And Joanna, I love the concept of, the cliche we hear a lot of times, but it's give, get. Like, it's not going in, what can I get from this, but what can I give? And part of my philosophy, which we don't have time to go into, but my shark philosophy, where I talk about serving from heart and really giving from a human perspective, a human point of view. So I've noticed, hopefully you noticed that I've put the LinkedIn links for each of them when they were speaking. You can go back. These will live permanently in my YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, and Facebook. So you can find those for them, as well as the their web email. I'm sorry.
The link
for the podcast,
yeah,
which I just put up again quickly. But you'll be able to find those. And when this goes live, I'll also write them in the comments so you can find those. But I want to thank you ladies so much for really sharing your time, honoring us with your perspectives, with your knowledge, your insights, your passion. It's very encouraging, and I'm honored to have you both on, and I thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill. It's been such a pleasure, and as you can tell, I and Joanna as well. I started talking for you now, Joanna. It's like we make this podcast, we become people. But it's so awesome to be able to talk to like-minded people about these things. But also, the discussions always take a turn, and then you learn something. Hopefully, the people listening have had something back as well. And feel free to reach out to any of us, I suppose, just if you want to ask a question or if you have a suggestion for a guest for the podcast. But thank you so much for having us.
Oh,
thank you, Jill.
Yes. Thank you, Joanna. Absolutely. I have some great recommendations, and if anyone wants to be a guest on CXPod, listen to it and see if you're a good fit. Reach out to them, comment. You can even tag them in the post below in the comments. Feel free to share this with anyone that you feel that is appropriate. So as we close out, I'm going to ask you just to hold on, but say goodbye to each of you, and thank you again for joining us. So thank you for being here today. I'm sure you received a lot of great things to be thinking about, to apply, to really go and create ideas, strategies, implement suggestions. And I think so much is the conversation, right? We talked about the conversation a lot. It starts with the conversation. Have that conversation in your workplace, with your people, with your customers. Discussion, conversation, communication is truly the crux of creating a better employee and a better customer experience. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on another Celebrity Customer Experience.